Roger. Runway 3, clear to land, caution for the crosswind 1206.
Okay, clear to land, runway 3, temperature good.
That's 52 Tango, the Cessna's 11 o'clock, 2.5 miles, slightly higher.
Hello YouTube, Captain Mac here, and welcome back to our Pmdg 737 tutorial series. A long series of short to medium length videos that talk you through the various procedures for flying the Pmdg aircraft, or the 737 anyway, but specifically more in depth with the pilot operating procedures using the Flight Crew Operations Manual. We have already covered several different topics, and what we're going to start diving into today is our overhead setup. And when you look at the checklist for the 737, the first item on the overhead setup is the flight control panel check. So what we're going to do in this video is take a look at what is the flight control panel, what are all the different items on the flight control panel, and then how we check those items to check that thing off the checklist. There's a lot of checks in there. So what do you say we climb up into the office and get to work? Now, if you're unfamiliar with the Boeing 737 or with what we call study level aircraft in general, the overhead panel of this aircraft can be quite daunting. However, I assure you it's actually laid out quite ingeniously. It's very simple to use, and once you know what's going on up here and you know the procedures, it's not difficult at all. Now, what we're going to be talking about right now is what's called the flight control panel. That's this panel in the top left corner of our entire overhead panel. And the first thing I want to do is go through all of the items that are on this panel, explain what they are very briefly in accordance with the Flight Crew Operations Manual. Now, they're all numbered in the manual, so it's number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 is all three of these, 7 is here, 8 is here, 9, 10, 11, and 12. And we'll talk about each of those very briefly, and I'm just going to read through what the Crew Operations Manual says. So number 1 is the flight control switches, and that's these two right here. This is the standby rudder, which so standby rudder, that's what we got going on here. Standby rudder, it activates standby hydraulic system pump and opens standby rudder shutoff valve to pressurize the standby rudder power control unit. When it's off, it closes flight control shutoff valve, isolating ailerons, elevators, and rudder from associated hydraulic system pressure. And then on, which is where it is right now in the guarded position, is just the normal operating position. The next item on the list is the two lights below it. Any of these lights, when they're illuminated, they're going to be amber in color. That's that orangish yellow we see right there. And these are the flight control low pressure lights. They indicate low hydraulic system A or B pressure to ailerons, elevator, and rudder. They're deactivated when associated flight control switch is positioned to standby rudder and standby rudder shutoff valve opens. Now, because we don't have any hydraulics going on the aircraft right now, they're going to remain illuminated. Moving on down to the next two switches here. These are the flight spoiler switches. They are on when they're in the guarded position, and that is their normal operating position. Off, when you turn them off, it closes the respective flight spoiler shutoff valve. And these are used, there's a note in here that says these are used for maintenance purposes only. The next item down here is the yaw damper light, and the light is illuminated when the yaw damper is not engaged, which it's not right now. And then, of course, this is the yaw damper switch. Up is the off position, which disengages the yaw damper. When you flip it down into the on position, it engages main yaw damper to main rudder power control unit if the B flight control switch is in the on position. That's this one right here. It engages standby yaw damper to standby rudder power control unit if both the A and B flight control switches are in the standby rudder position. Alright, moving on to the top of the panel over here, we've got the standby hydraulic lights, all three of these lights. And I'm going to zoom in, I'm going to try and zoom in here anyway. Looking at these switches up here, you have the standby hydraulic low quantity light, and again, if it's illuminated, it'll be amber. And when it's illuminated, it indicates low quantity in the standby hydraulic reservoir. It's always armed. The next light is the standby hydraulic low pressure light. It's amber when illuminated, and it indicates output pressure of standby pump is low. Armed only when standby pump operation has been selected or automatic standby function is activated. And then the last one down here is the standby rudder on light, which again turns amber when illuminated, and would indicate the standby rudder system is commanded to pressurize the standby rudder power control unit. Next on the list is our alternate flaps master switch. That's this guy right here. It is off when it's in the guarded position as it is right now, and that is the normal operating position. When you arm it, it closes the trailing edge flap bypass valve, activates the standby pump, and arms the alternate flaps position switch. Next down the list here is the alternate flaps position switch, which is this guy right here, so activated by arming this guy. And it functions only when the alternate flaps master switch is in arm. That's what I just said. You got to arm this in order to use this. And when you push it up, it electrically retracts the trailing edge flaps. The leading edge devices will remain extended and cannot be retracted by the alternate flap system. Off is the normal operating position, which is the center here. Down, there are two different functions down. There's spring loaded. And so what that does is you push it down and let go of it, and it momentarily fully extends the leading edge devices using standby hydraulic pressure. So if you just press it down and let go, it's going to fully extend the leading edge flaps using the standby hydraulic pressure. If you hold it down, it electrically extends the trailing edge flaps until released. So you could hold it down and continue to extend the trailing edge flaps until you let go. And then the last 4 items on the list, we have 4 different lights here. The first one is the fuel differential pressure light. It's armed when the trailing edge flaps are up or down and is illuminated an amber color as always, which indicates excessive differential pressure in the elevator fuel computer. There's a note here that says excessive differential pressure can be used by erroneous activation of the elevator fuel shift module. The next light is the speed trim failure light. Again, illuminated it would be amber and would indicate failure of the speed trim system. It also indicates failure of a single FCC channel when master caution light recall is activated. We've already looked at what the master caution recall light is. And light extinguishes, this light extinguishes when the master caution system is reset. The next one is the mock trim failure light. Amber when illuminated indicates failure of the mock trim system. And again, just like the speed trim failure light, it indicates failure of a single FCC channel when the master caution light recall is activated, and light extinguishes when the master caution system is reset. And then the last one here is the automatic slat failure light. Turns amber when illuminated and indicates failure of the auto slat system. It also indicates failure of a single stall management or yaw damper computer when illuminated during master caution recall, and then extinguishes when the master caution system is reset. That's all of the items on the flight control panel, and now we'll talk about what we do to complete the item on the checklist, which is the flight control panel check. Alright, so as we get into our overhead setup checklist and procedures, the pre-flight procedure for the first officer, part of his responsibility is this overhead panel, and specifically right now the flight control panel check. What the first officer is going to do, and of course you don't have a first officer, so you're going to have to do this if you want to go through proper pre-flight procedure. The first thing you want to do is make sure that your flight control switches, that the guards are closed on these two right here, and verify that the flight control low pressure lights are illuminated. So these lights should be on right now. The flight spoiler switches should be guarded and closed as well. And then the yaw damper switch should be turned on, and verify that the yaw damper light is extinguished. Now I'm going to tell you, we made sure that we did the IRS alignment before doing this video, because if the IRS is not aligned, the yaw damper switch will not remain in the on position. It will go back to the off position, and the yaw damper light will remain illuminated, which means you can't complete this check. You want to verify that the standby hydraulic low quantity light is extinguished. That's this top one up here. Verify that the standby hydraulic low pressure light is extinguished. That's the next one down. Verify that the standby rudder light on light is extinguished. That's the third light. Alternate flaps master switch should have the guard closed. That's this one here. The alternate flaps position switch should be off, which is in the center. And then you want to verify that all 4 of these lights, the fuel differential pressure light, the speed trim fail light, and the mock trim fail light, as well as the auto slat fail light, that's these 4 here, are all extinguished. and that completes the check of the flight control panel, and we can check that item off of our checklist. And that's going to wrap it up for this portion of the tutorial series, folks. Do remember that what we're working on here is not simply the checklist. These are actually the flows that you'll go through. These things are done automatically, and then the checklist is to come back later and verify that we've actually done everything that's required of us. So there are a lot more items on the overhead setup, but because there were so many different things involved with just the flight control panel, I wanted to do this video by itself so that you can see what the flight control panel is, understand why you're checking all of those items and what they do before we check that item off of our checklist. That's it. That's all and no more, ladies and gentlemen. If you like the video, please give it a thumbs up down below. It definitely helps the algorithm for YouTube. You know, you hear a lot of YouTubers say that. That's because YouTube actually sends us emails and stuff and little tutorial videos that tell us how to get more views for our videos and so on. So the more thumbs up that a video gets, the higher up it appears in the searches when somebody's looking for information on the Pmdg 737. So please do give the video a thumbs up down below, and if you do think that I've earned it, please do go ahead and hit the subscribe button down there. Click on the bell if you want to get notifications as more of these videos come out. And then finally, look down in the video description below. If there are other tutorials that you're looking for on the Pmdg 737, you will find all the ones that I've completed so far in a list in the video description down below. Now that really is it, and that really is all, ladies and gentlemen. Until next time, as always, keep the blue side up, unless otherwise instructed by ATC. God bless you all. Thank you for joining me, and have an absolutely fantastic day.